Hello and welcome to part one of the breathing video tutorials. In this tutorial, you will learn the essentials of functional, restorative, and rejuvenative breathing techniques. Now, the importance of breathing comes in two forms. One we can call more anatomical, and the other one is more functional. Now, of course, both of those overlap, but it's important to at least make that differentiation because different structures of the body are affected by the breath. And so on the anatomical side, the diaphragm is the main muscle of breathing. So that's what contracts when we inhale and what releases when we exhale. It is also considered to be one of our spine's main stability mechanisms. So the health of the diaphragm muscle actually does start to overlap with the health and integrity of the entire spine. Okay, now it is also very important to consider that there is something called intra-abdominal and intrathoracic pressure. So that is the pressure we have inside of our chest and inside of our abdomen throughout the whole process of breathing. So when you've inhaled, you have more pressure inside of your body, intra-abdominally, intrathoracically, than you do when you exhale. The important thing to remember here is that when you build up pressure in your body, when you inhale, and if you inhale properly, if you inhale with good capacity, that pressure affects the overall length of your torso. And because it affects the overall length of your torso, it actually affects the overall length of your spine. And the use of that is that when your spine is allowed a little bit more length, a little bit more what's called axial extension, that creates space, or it removes pressure on the spinal discs. So this again links back to back pain, and especially the large and pervasive incidence of low back pain in our modern world. Most of that comes down to the way that the vertebra, the bones of the spine, press down on the discs. So when you take that pressure off the discs get a chance to rejuvenate. So your actual spine gets a chance to rejuvenate. And yes, it could have serious implications on the removal or the healing of any back pain, especially disc-associated back pain. Now, on the functional side of breathing, everybody knows about the necessary intake of oxygen and the expulsion of CO2. And this comes down to which part of our nervous system takes the wheel, so to speak. So if we breathe properly, the effective or efficient exchange of oxygen and CO2 occurs, and the nervous system will therefore function optimally. If we don't breathe functionally, if we breathe dysfunctionally, then there's a little bit of a miscalculation or a difference in the O2 to CO2 levels as opposed to what it's supposed to be in more of a healthy balanced state, and that affects our nervous system. So the prevalence of CO2 that we can build up in the body by not breathing properly, by not knowing especially how to exhale, creates an acidic environment. And that acidic environment then begins to trigger the sympathetic, or as we know it, as we've heard about it, the fight or flight part of the nervous system. So this is a very interesting thing to consider because we can actually start to manipulate the function of our nervous system, and especially those two branches of the autonomic nervous system, by tweaking the dials of our breath, as you will learn in this video. And again, this goes back to inducing a better state or a better homeostasis when we're in more of a sympathetic or a parasympathetic state. Those have their own associated links to our mood, to our so-called psycho-emotional life. So there are related effects that connect to our serotonin production or our dopamine production, depending again on how well we breathe. So any misfire in the respiratory system by necessity sets off a chain of events that creates a misfire and an imbalance in the nervous system and the neurochemical elements of the nervous system. So we're not going to get into the theory and those scientific specific elements of breathing. This is just important to know because when we breathe correctly, we are not only interfacing with the lungs, we're actually interfacing with the entire body. It does begin to influence the health and well-being of not just your nervous system, your digestive system as well, your musculoskeletal system, your immune system, your circulatory system, and really respiration is the number one avenue to wellness in both yoga and, as now Western science is starting to recognize it. So what you will need for this breathing video is just a bolster, as you will see, and a blanket. If you don't have a yoga blanket, you can use a towel. If you don't have a bolster, you can use a couple of pillows. You can use, like, say, a couch cushion. That doesn't really matter. You'll see shortly coming here what you were going to use it for in the first place. And the best posture to be in for your pranayama practice, at least starting out, is, as you'll see in the video, is just to lay down and make yourself the utmost comfortable. Now, if you have a pre-existing meditation or pranayama practice that you've already developed your skill at sitting upright without being too engaged in the rest of your body, then of course use the video with that kind of posture. But as you start out, you will notice that the rest of the body, even if you're just sitting upright, it really takes a lot of management to keep the body and the spine erect while also interfacing with the complexities of your breath. And so we lay down to do this, and that allows all this other peripheral tension to diffuse. And because you're going to be laying down with your eyes closed, these videos, they're really meant to be used more as an audio tool. And the video is there for you if something doesn't sound clear and you need to look over and double check. But ideally, whatever device that you're using these videos on, you will just use the audio content from it. And speaking of videos, the next little segment is just going to describe the sequence of structural changes that have to take place, ideally, in a nice functional inhale and a functional exhale. So as you watch this segment, you can just hit the pause button afterwards. You can put one hand on your abdomen, one hand on the chest, and just notice how it actually feels to inhale and exhale, and notice the sequence of these structural changes. Now, if you watch my abdomen as I inhale, the abdomen should be the first to expand, followed right away by the expansion of the chest and ribs. And as I exhale, the ribs and the chest contracts first, and the belly contracts at the end. And again, as I inhale, you see how the belly expands, and it really should expand in all directions, not just up and down. Same with the chest here at the end. And on the exhale, be sure to contract your chest first and your belly last. It's almost like a wave moving through your body, where the inhale, the crest of the wave, begins at the abdomen and transitions to the chest. And on the exhale, the crest of the wave moves away from the chest, down to the abdomen, and then all the way to empty. And so now that you've gone over the basics and you know the sequence of the breath and how to use it, it'll be a little bit easier once you lay down and you get into the rhythm of it. So please enjoy your practice, and I will see you in the closing video.